全球 CEO 课程联席课程主任张维炯先生上台主持今天下午的学术分论坛。有请张维炯先生。
Now let's warmly welcome Mr. 张维炯。Honorable leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am the host for the Sub-Academic Forum, Zhang Weijiong. Welcome to join the Academic Sub-Forum of 2022 Pudong International Talent Hub Forum, sponsored by Shanghai Talent Development Co. Limited and the People's Government of Pudong New Area, Pudong Talent Work Leading Group Office, and the Pudong New Area Human Resources and Social Security Bureau, China-Europe International Business School, Li Zhendao Institute of Shanghai Jiaotong University and Shanghai Zhangjiang Co. Limited, and Brilliant International. And welcome all of you to the Sub-Forum, Building Organizational Resilience in the VUCA area. Today's Sub-Forum is organized by China-Europe International Business School. As we all know, to build Pudong into a leading area of China's economic development, talents are the primary resource. Recent years, Pudong has thoroughly implemented the strategy of innovation-driven development and strengthening the development with talents and comprehensively promoted the precise integration of innovation chain, talent chain, and industrial chain. The 2022 Pudong International Talent Hub Forum, opening today, takes seeing the innovation trend, telling stories about Pudong, and talking about talent development as its main theme, and leading, innovating, and integrating as the topic. Experts, scholars, scientists, entrepreneurs, and innovative and entrepreneur talents, etc., are invited to jointly explore innovative ideas and promote the deep integration of talents, technologies, and industry development. The CEIBS, located in Pudong, was jointly funded by the Chinese government and the European Union in 1994. Over the past 28 years, with the strong support of the Pudong New District government, the campus has grown and developed together with the Pudong New Area. Adhering to the school motto of conscientiousness, innovation, and excellence, the campus is committed to cultivating business leaders who have both China depth and the world breadth and take active social responsibilities. It has now become the cradle of many outstanding leaders, managers, as well as the model for successful cooperation between Europe and China, creating it a top-ranking business school in Asia and a world-class business school. It also became a platform for economic and cultural exchanges between China, Europe, and even the whole world. And we'd like to thank the Pudong New Area government support. And today, we are very lucky to have invited Mr. Dominique Turbin to deliver an opening remark. Professor Dominique Turbin received his master's degree from Higher Business School in Angers, France, and his doctor's degree from Sophia University, Japan. And he has accumulated rich experience in teaching, consulting, and research in Europe, Latin America, and Asia for several decades. He has published over 100 books, papers, and case studies. He is an expert in marketing, and he was also awarded an emeritus member of the International Management Society for his outstanding achievements in the field of executive education. Now let's warmly welcome
kind introduction. Honorable leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be with you today to say a few words about what talent means for global competitiveness. In my personal view, every organization needs three key elements to be competitive. One is, a sense of purpose, which means usually often a product or a service that will bring value to customers or society at large, money and talent. And the purpose is not so difficult to find. Actually, as a marketing professor, I often say that the marketing mission is really to create value for customers. In other words, the marketing mission is really to help companies find meaningful solutions to customer problems. Obviously, the world is still full of problems, therefore the opportunities are immense. If we can solve a meaningful problem, usually money is not an issue. The most critical element is most often people or talent. And of course, you could argue that we are not short of people, but finding and retaining talent is not so easy as it sounds. In my long career as a professor, I've seen many companies go down or even collapse simply because they had the wrong talents or the wrong leadership. Many companies fail because they had the wrong product, the wrong timing, or the wrong strategy. But let's remember that strategy, timing, product decisions are all made by people. Therefore, I want to emphasize that talent is probably the most valuable factor in competitiveness, because at the end of the day, any organization, any business is made of people and talent. Now, since talent is so important, I'm still surprised that many organizations, at least in Europe, tend to be inconsistent between what they say and what they do. On the one hand, every company tells me that, they are fighting to get the best possible talent. But when introduced to great talents, sometimes they are poor at following up. They are recruiting talent, but then, they are not always terribly diligent at developing this talent and doing everything they could to retain their best talent. So detecting, developing, and retaining talents are all important. But to me, retention is often the biggest issue. I recently read an article from a colleague at Stanford University who concluded that in the United States, 60% of employees quit their job, not because the pay is bad or the job is not interesting, but simply because they feel they have a bad boss. And actually, my colleague Catherine Chin suggested that, it's a range of 45 to 60%, depending on the country, but we find this phenomena almost everywhere. So for all of us who are leading people, I think that this is a very important fact to remember. I think that it's important to remind us that it's costly to attract people, it's costly to develop people, but even more expensive to let great talent go, especially since we know the best people usually go first. They are the ones who are finding, the best opportunity. So in order to retain people, I guess it's absolutely key to understand their motivation, and obviously the young generation has very different hopes, very different wishes than the older generation. So as leaders, I think we must be sensitive to this need and adjust our expectation. I could certainly expand on this point, but since time is limited, I would like to leave this thought in your mind. Remember, detecting, developing, retaining talent are all important, but retention needs special extra attention. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Professor Dominic, for your wonderful speech. Actually, Professor Dominic mentioned one important point, many people left the post for several reasons. It's actually about the bad boss. It's quite wonderful. Today, in our forum, we have several other professors sharing about their research results as well as opinions on talent cultivating. Now, let's take a look at about a short video clip about the several speakers. Now, let's take a look at the screen.
First of all, would like to give the floor to Ms. Wang Hong, Dean of China-Europe International Business School, Professor of Management, and Professor of Management of Handian Group. Ms. Wang Hong is a PhD in Business Administration from Shanghai Jiaotong University, a postdoctoral fellow in Applied Economics from Pudong University, and a national second-class professor. She enjoys the special allowance of the State Council and is now a leading talent in Shanghai and outstanding academic leader in Shanghai. She has long served as the vice chairman of the Teaching Steering Committee of Business Administration in higher education institutions of the Ministry of Education and served as the vice chairman of the Teaching Steering Committee of Management Science and Engineering of the Ministry of Education, and her research achievements have won national and Shanghai awards. In August 2022, she once again won the Special Achievement Award of the ACLN 7th Asian Cruise Contribution Award again. So today, the theme of the speech by Ms. Wang Hong today is the empowerment of digital intelligence in the VUCA era and creating a new highland for gathering talent and wisdom in Pudong. Now let's give the floor to Madam Wang Hong. Distinguished leaders, dear experts, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am very glad to be able to participate in this International Talent Hub Forum organized by Pudong New District so that we can share in the time after the reform opening up. For the Pudong New District, we are facilitating the high-level opening up, and we're also building a new highland for new talent. I think this is at the good timing. And we're having the prospering development, and I think this is the dominant theme that impresses all the people around the globe. We also mentioned that we're living in a world with uncertainties, especially in a digital economy world, and while we're building in new industries, and most importantly in Pudong. What role does Pudong take? Pudong has been facilitating talent policies, be it for the 14 routes or the 9 routes for attracting global talent. We've actually seen a lot of the changes and all the pioneering role. You can see we connect the industrial chain with the talent chain. That's how we build a talent highland. And also this morning, we've also heard this report by the minister, Mr. Peng. We will set up more policies to support the building of this new district as the highland for China to open up as the demonstrative zone to steer the country into a powerhouse of the globe. I think it is very important for us to continue to build it into a new highland. And also we say that the national development hinges on our own talent building, and the national rejuvenation also depends on our talent. So we also mentioned that we need to build comprehensively a national country with more of this rejuvenation for the science, talent, education. This is the most important theme of strategic support for us to realize a new community and to build into a wall of community. And we need to uphold several first principles. One is that innovation is the first driving force and talent is the first rule. This is very important for China's opening up and reform, and for Shanghai's development, and for Pudong's pioneering role. Talent is definitely the foundation for that. And today I'd like to share from the four aspects perspective. One is in the VUCA era for the global digital economy, for our China's economy, what kind of platform it could provide us and what kind of trend it has set for us. And the second is in today's changing world, what is the new development patterns of the VUCA era. And the third is in Pudong New District, what are the new requirements for Shanghai's digital economic development in the VUCA's era. And also we'll have the strategic support measures for the VUCA era. So the first one is that in this VUCA era, we're having this new development trend, and we're also seeing this new situation in all those years, especially this year for this global economic development. It has had lots of the challenges and impact brought about by the uncertainties. The orderly development has been turned into disorderly, and we're also seeing conflicting trends of new conflicts and old conflicts that has also brought about by the all countries, which are known as the Black Swan events and the Great Rhino events. So what are known as the Black Swan events? When the black swans are flying, all of a sudden they will dive into the ground just to plunge all the resources or to bring about all the challenges. So it referred to as the uncontrollable, unexpected event. Then what is Great Rhino? You feel like a Great Rhino is forging ahead towards you. Challenges and opportunities are always there, but they're not that obvious. But we could feel that it is imminent, but we're not sure how sudden it will charge toward us. And we're not sure how aggressive and how impactful that will be. If we cannot have a very good control over the Black Swan events and the Great Rhino events, just like the pack has just mentioned, we are living in a time of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And Mr. Chen and Mr. Gong have also mentioned that when we are having uncertainties, how entrepreneurs could come here to demonstrate resilience, to be able to cope with the uncertain times of changes. So for us, in today's world, we have undergone a new round of industrial revolution and technological revolution. This is now at an important time, be it for the first round of industrial revolution or for the current fourth industrial revolution. What we value is the speed, the scale, and the impactful scale, and also the advancement of the technologies. Because for the first industrial revolution, that is the time of the steam engine, in 1809, we have around 1 trillion of the global GDP, and all the way to today, it has amounted to over 87 trillion. So from the Newton's power rules all the way to today's artificial intelligence, and we also entered into the information revolution of the third time. And at these days, we're also seeing the emergent trend of the internet, metaverse, and the blockchain, and all the opportunities are basically prominent and prevalent everywhere. And it has given us more opportunities, and we're seeing that the digital era is also undergoing a lot of changes. It's developing very quickly, it has covered very widely, and it has also very in-depth development. This is unprecedented in times. And for the main opportunities, the Ding Zhangjie and some entrepreneurs have also mentioned that we aspire to explore the metaverse, we aspire to exploit more science and technologies. Those entrepreneurs and scientists mentioned that in the physical world, digital world, biological world, we are having more interdisciplinary integration. Artificial intelligence, biotech, integrated integrated circuit, smart manufacturing, we're also seeing a range of emergent technologies, and these technologies can be transformed into productivity. And in the new business mode, new business forms, we're also seeing different kinds of new business models. The previous old business models are thus disrupted, and we are also seeing this manufacturing, consumption, logistics, and delivery systems have been changed and reshaped. And we also see that we need to continuously to expand new fields. So before we need to seek more of the changes amid the development, we would like to make a U-turn. And it wouldn't really just solve all these issues for us. It's more important for us even to change the track, not just to overpass others, not just to surpass others. We need to have more intelligence guarantee. We need to have the top scientist team. So in the 12th five-year plan report, it also mentioned that we need to build China into a powerhouse into manufacturing, aircraft, and internet and digital China's building. And to achieve this end, we also need to build a new structure. So those we need to make breakthrough for some of the bottlenecks, and at the same time we need to have new advancement and for AI, biomedicine, medication, new materials, and advanced equipment and environmental protection, and all those new fields. These industries need to take the lead, and Pudong, we will also see later on, have such settings and scenarios for us to put together all those emergent technologies. We have the industrial parks, trade parks, and we have the science technology parks. And for me to mention, to switch to some new trucks. What are the new trucks here? I have listed 22 here. We have some of the new trucks for the business. We have the new e-commerce, vertical e-commerce, and we have the cross-border e-commerce, social e-commerce, and the retail, the fresh food e-commerce, automobile e-commerce. So you see these days for consumption in all the fields of today's fields, these could be directly realized online. Then for all the different businesses, the companies, you can see all those popular communities and the products, the new retail mode of all the new products, and we have the e-finance, the internet banks, and the smart risk control, smart insurance, smart logistics. It's also everywhere. You can feel in every aspect of our life, and China has developed into the biggest hub of the logistics chain and the supply chain. And also we have this smart logistics. We have set up a very good information platform. We have the smart delivery, logistics, robotics are also everywhere. So if we're able to put together all the business tracks, it will also serve a very important role. And for our daily life, for people's well-being, we also have the smart household, and even for the pet services, and for the cultural services, sport technology, internet culture, and online reading, and digital consumption, like the entertainment, short videos, digital music, and videos. These are all the new tracks we see, and we also have the social new tracks, internet medicine, internet education, smart transportation, digital new tracks. We have AI, especially in the industries. We need to have AI solutions, AI chips, computer vision, and big data, Internet of Things, blockchain. This is more about the digital chain technology, and we also have the cloud security, cloud computing, cyber security, and we also have new tracks in the industries, from the industrial internet to the service industries, internet to the agriculture internet, and for the service robotics, and for our own agriculture's development, we will also want to make some changes, like in the Guangdong province, they're trying to change the desert into the pastures. So we could also see our population accounts for 18% to 20% of the world, and such a transformation can help us solve us the food issue of all those large population. And for this part, this is how we want to realize to build into a smart nation. This is a very important platform. And for the science and the technology channel, we have the quantum computing, integrated circuit, and some of this pioneering new materials, like for the nanomaterials, compound materials, and the new systematic materials. And for this aircraft, and we have this artificial satellite, the high hydrogen bomb all the way to today. We're also trying to explore the space and to try to build a new space station. So you can see for our nation's space station has been developed from scratch, and all the way to today we are leading and pioneering the industry in the globe. And we'll also see the genetic modification technologies are developing as well. The changes of the trucks, we need to have the support of more talent and more industries. And the second is we are seeing the new development trend of all those internet industries. We have this platform-based and the smart-driven industries all the way we see to today. So before we just have the application of the online technologies to the sharing of this internet to build a smart industries, to have such an industries dominated by the services. So for the society, for the economy, and across the whole field, it has had a profound support from C2C, B2C, all the way to B2B. We have transformed a lot for our business mode, for our service mode. It has also brought about more disruption. Throughout the globe, you can see the digital economies are prospering in such countries as US, China, Germany, Japan, UK, France. The digital economy scale has exceeded 1 trillion US. US, China, and Germany are the top 3 countries. And here you can see are the top 50 countries where you could all see the sharing of all those statistics. So we have developed countries, emerging countries. We have all opted the track of the digital economy, and we're all on the track to facilitating the building of the digital economy. And we can also see digital transformation as the important engine for global economic growth, because technology application is very important for the global economy, and we need to translate R&D results into actual application. This has served as a very important driving force. And according to the Research Institute estimate, macroly speaking, in 2021, 47 countries across the globe's digital economy's value-added scale has reached 38.1 trillion USD. It has increased by 15.6%. Digital economy has also reformed our global value chain. It has served as an important revolutionary power. So as you can see, the digital economy has now supported the beauty, the layout of our industrial chain and the supply chain. For our global supply chain, you can see this main circulation has been realized possible. And throughout this global structure, you can see we have all this regional development, local development, the pattern changes, and also we can see from the bottom side of the pyramid, the most important thing is that we need to have this IP. You see US and China is on top of this pyramid for holding the patent and the brand's core technologies. South Korea and Japan has been leading in terms of this large-scale integrated circuit and some of the key components. We're also seeing some breakthroughs.
But a large amount of the manufacturing or the OEM major concentrated in Southeast Asian countries or in Asia Pacific regions. Therefore, digital economy in the reshaping of the global economy, and it also posed a labor of distribution as well as standards for that. So we have no choice but continue to climb from the bottom to the top so that we can further accelerate the science and technology innovation, and then finally fully reflected in the value chain. And third one is that from the global competition layout, in the past it was mainly focused on the developed countries. However, developing countries and the other countries are also accelerating this process. In the past, it's mainly the developed countries like United States, Germany, but now emerging countries are also accelerating its speed, like China and India. But due to new technology development, it also drive the new science and technology as well as the new patterns. With the R&D in China continue to rise over twice as the growth rate per year. And now China ranks #1 globally in terms of talent. But China has a large population base. US ranked the second, but the speed of transferring into productivity was slower than that of China. Second, in the VUCA area, what about the China's digital economic development new pattern? The Chinese new economic pattern, as I previously mentioned, from ranking the second economy, largest economy, and now a large country and population. How can it build itself into a strong economy? And quality development is actually very important. And modern economy and digital economy are very great opportunities. Only by seizing these good opportunities can we identify our positioning and can we overcome a lot of bottleneck issues. And only by doing that can we increase the economic efficiency and maximize its production. That's the reason why China's digital economy now reaches a scale of 45 trillion, accounting for 39% of the GDP, and annual growth rate 15.9%, mainly in the YZD region accounting for 30, and the Tianjin, Beijing, Hefei accounting for 19%, and the Great Bay Area we mainly put the statistic in Guangzhou, which is ranking, which accounted for the largest ratio, and in the Party Congress 20th report, it also mentioned that we need to build a modern services development and promote the advanced manufacturing, deep integration, accelerate digital economy, and promote the deep integration of digital economy and real economy so that we can build cluster development. Only by doing that, we can move towards that direction and accelerate the traditional industry's transformation towards the digital era. Here, I especially mentioned that China recent years, we have built a core computational scale over 1.5 trillion RMB and annual growth rate over 30%, and the cloud computing surpassed 300 billion, and industry digitalization is now accelerating its development speed. Industrial Internet now covers 45 national major economic sectors, especially since the 1950s to now. China now has actually quite independent industrial supply chain system. I still remember that once I was in a university, there was a saying that industry is the most complete industry. Why the U.S. industry structures now decreased to 15%? Because it has advanced finance industry, because it can distribute its resources worldwide so that its manufacturing ratio decreased. China has a large population, a large area. We have our own independent complete system. We don't have advanced financial system as the U.S. We developed by our own. So we seize this opportunity to build our own industrial chains and system. Now, if you want to build a modern industry system, real economy, and independent industrial chains are the basic pillars to support us for the economic transformation and global cooperation. Although we also have transferring of some industries with human capital increase, human resources increase. Some of the industries are now shifting to Western China and Southeast Asian countries. So we are now seeing that the digital economy is surpassing 1 trillion RMB. It's linking over 18 million of devices of industries, and the 5G basis now reached over 2 million. And the U.S. said they're not interested in 5G anymore. They're now trying to work on sixth generation. Huawei is now working in competition in this region. I believe that there will be breakthroughs in the next 5 to 10 years. So China's economic advantages, population in large scale, and the completeness or the whole unity of China itself. Although we have over 30 different provinces and city municipalities, we are not a federate states countries. We are a centralized, so we can gather our efforts and energy and cultivate a good system, and we can play our advanced industrial chains to build it into a new industry ecology. That's the reason why we see Guizhou province as a poor province in your mind, but now it has become a famous province. In the past, you may only think of the Maotai Chinese liquor. However, its cloud, its new infrastructure is far better than the traditional stereotype. Due to the pandemic of this year, the industry investment suffered great challenges, and the terminal consumption also suffered challenges, and the party and state council regarded the new infrastructure as the basic new energy strategy. So that's the reason why we are now seeing 70 million strategic investment. In China's economy development, it also has many bottlenecks. For example, in key technologies, as I've just mentioned, the key components, chips, core technologies, etc. I will not elaborate one by one. The other experts will share more about that. For that, China's SMEs transformation suffer pressure. For science and technology giants, they cover a wide range of industries, but for SMEs in China, around 160 million SMEs and individual households, it's quite difficult for them to shift or make transformation due to capital or human resources. So over 80% of SMEs in China, when they're launching digitalization application, it still remains on the simple procedure of transaction. So over 40% of SMEs still face difficulties of survival. So for large enterprises, they're also having difficulties. Digitalization supported human or HR resources match-up is not sufficient. Large-scale labor layoff. I here give you an example in Baoshan. Previously, it had around 2 million employees. 1 decade later, now it's an auto factory, and they cannot move to. The employees can only have retired early, and it suffered talent shortage. So we need to cultivate new talents. That requirement or the need for highly skilled laborers, as well as education cultivation policies, can help us to make up for the gap. Within a short period of time, that's a challenge. So I think that the Pudong New Area layout and strategy is quite important for the introduction of high-skilled worker and skilled personnel. I think this is actually the correct direction. We need to consider about this reasonable layout. Although China made breakthroughs in certain areas, the core 10 technologies, for example, Mars and tidal, as well as the lunar probe and the human artificial endowment, and so on. But we still suffer some shortages. In advanced manufacturing, core components, core data pool, we still lag behind in some of the industry bases. We have robots sales accounting for 50% globally. We have introduced the advanced 4 robots companies in China. They come from US, Japan, and for example, like the Farag robot. In China, they do not share their core technologies with us. Only by constant innovation independently can we gain core technology innovation. So here I listed 35 bottleneck technologies. So for the entrepreneurs, and you can actually pay special attention to this. Yesterday, I saw a new science and technology company in Pudong New Area in the plastic plate, and it made a breakthrough about the materials, and the Chinese State TV made it a good example for innovation. In the VUCA area, Shanghai's development for the talents, we know that in China, Shanghai is not ranking the first, but in cities, it ranks number 1, accounting over 50% of the GDP, contributing over 67% of the economic development. So it is quite important. However, in terms of the industrial chain digitalization, it only accounted for 40%. What kind of talents do we need in this new area? Financial tech, digital manufacturing, integrated circuit, quantum technologies. We need those talent. So in the municipal government's policy for talents attraction and Pudong for 5 consecutive years. The World Leading Scientist Forum, as well as the top leading scientists community gathered pharmaceuticals, IC, as well as other advanced series of scientists to join this lab. In the morning session, academician Zhang Jie and several entrepreneurs mentioned about the joint lab and the highland. The innovation as well as advanced lab will bring us new space as well as potential for industry. Especially for the Pudong New area, it is the world influential science and technology hub. It regards science and technology innovation as the source or the philosophy of it. It aims to build a hub to gather talents and wisdom and build an ecological system. It is brave and dare to make transformation. So among the 21 free trade zones, Pudong New area ranks the first one, which can be marketed to other areas. So build itself into a leading area for a socialist modern area. It regards transformation and opening up as the primary driving force, as well as making itself into the highest level to satisfy people's demand. So we'd like to speak highly of the new trend led by the Pudong residents. Here, even in some difficult situations, its GDP last year was 3%, and this year, I heard from Mayor Gong Zheng, it contributed over 40% of Shanghai's GDP, surpassed even 1 trillion.
The total import volume has also increased by 5.2% on an annually process, and for this R&D scale, so it has also averaged around 4 in Pudong, which is the developed countries level, and also we will see for all this development, well, we also have seen some all this work, and for those technologies, we have 145 of that, and we could see we have this global situations, and we can see for the structuring and for the value chain, and we are also seeing this is the hub of these industries, and it is where all these industries are gathered together. We also have seen this Lingang Lujiazui, and for the Jingqiang, it has pioneered this economic development and has now built into Shanghai's international hub of Lujiazui, and we also have this AI, biomedicine, and for the smart equipment, cultural creativity, and all the talents. And we have this joint mechanism so that we can lead reform and opening up. And also at this Waigaoqiao, it has also pioneered all this work, and we could also see for this industries and all this work, and it has been the concentration work of that. And also we can see for our asset management hub. So this year, although we are impacted by the pandemic, so you can see that China has ranked the 6th place in New York, in London, in Boston, and Singapore, and Hong Kong, and Chicago was at this 4th and 6th place together with us. And we can see for this financial hub, we have more the talents, and we could also see, according to the feedback, we basically have the most optimal business work. We have the green channels, we have all this preferential policies, and we could also strengthen more of those policies. And in terms of the talent management, we have done a pretty good job. Then in terms of attracting the talent, we have ranked in the 3rd place, surpassing that of Tokyo, because for us, we put a lot of emphasis on attracting talent and for the chip talent. Because of the time, I wouldn't elaborate too much on that. So we have 10 engineering positions that are are aspiring for more of the talents. And also we see for the AI industry talents. So for this part here, we can also see for different industries, we have different supply and demand. And for those actual positions, we have seen all those hot demand. And for the talent supply and demand, it hasn't really lived up to my own goal. So we have 0.17, 0.98. So there's a lot more space to be developed. And also we see the talents, they are developing in different directions. There are a lot of talents that we really need. Then for the overall positions, you could also see that could account for 39.1% and 33.4%. So you can see relevant technological talents are desperately needed. That's the same case for the big data industry talents. And we could also see there are a lot of them more that we can do. So these days, as the national digital economy develops, we can see for the Yangtze Delta region, for the Hong Kong, and for the Guangdong region, our country has served as a driving engine of all this work. And in Nanjing, Hefei, and under the support of the National State Council, we have also released the industrial cluster, the concept of this industrial cluster. So we hope that the Pudong's impact could also influence all the surrounding region as well. And the fourth one is that we want to build a new highland of Pudong of all the talents in this time of VUCA. And under the General President's leadership, we are also about to launch some new policies. The new policies are very much comprehensive. I've also learned and drawn some reference from it. It has been very new, very in-depth. One is that we need to take the initiative in developing the digital economy. And although these days we have all the volatilities, uncertainties, complexity, and ambiguity for our previous industry patterns, we are seeing this profound changes between this individual's relationship with the world and the business. We need to actively learn, and we need to learn in a critical perspective. We need to have the digital perspective. We need to be more iterative. We need to have a global perspective so that we could cope with the harmonious development and all the policy concept to be more actively. So that's what we mean for a global perspective for our organization's resilience. Later on, Professor Wang would mention that for our organization's resilience, for our organizational management and our strategic management, if we consider from that, we need to have this inner control word of that, and we need to have more this inclusive work. And because we have this president from the European countries and from the China side, and also we have over 120 global professors from all across the globe. They have the best North American and European and Asia Pacific regions business schools learning, and they have the top work experience, and they know about this economic trend, and know about all the theories and the principles. They can better guide the economic development. So that's why we have such a harmonious work and have more thinking about this industry. And we have the integrative wisdom of the East and the West, and also in it we can see three first. First productivity, first resources, first driving force. We have more experts, strategic scientists, and leading technology experts and innovation teams use science and technology talents and outstanding engineers. So we need to be the IND to make that into reality. And we need to clearly see that in this Pudong New District's discussion, we have seen all this essence or the content. We are more like-minded. That is what I think. So in terms of this international competition, we needed to get aligned. We need to get synergized. This is the key for us to win over and to build this highland. We need to break the bottlenecks. We need to realize to transform from an economic powerhouse into a main country. As such a major platforms, we need to be guided by this main task, the learning forces, and we need to have such a strategic national scientific team led by scientist Qian Xuesen, and also like we have all these entrepreneurs have also mentioned, we need to have our development track, and at the same time, all the scientists and entrepreneurs, they could try their best to be able to fully tap their potential and to have more development so that we can optimize such a development. That's the policies organized by the Pudong New District. And also for this part here, we have elaborated on all those platforms, like for this major strategy, global level platform, and the main discipline and the main tasks. So all those 4 different aspects, that's very important, how we're able to attract more talent. In interest of time, I wouldn't elaborate too much on that. Another is that how we can build into a Chen Shizhen type national leader, and we could see for before we also have such a forum while we are launching the satellite, we have set up a team of the scientists of various disciplines, and we jointly connected different departments. We also have launched the very first artificial satellites. So all the way today, we have launched over 500 satellites already, and we have a lot of the top national satellites. In terms of this national space station, we account for not a very large proportion yet, but we are now a global top 3. So we can see we have organized this joint mechanism to collaborate with other scientists at home and abroad. And in terms of this cultural and scientific and research environment, how we can develop in terms of innovation, and with our high quality people-to-people exchanges, international community building, and we could also see some of the science and technologies. So how we're able to unleash all this energy, and for us just to build all this Pudong is actually to serve as the treasure house for all that, and we're able to realize the dream so that we can have this innovation, we can have this industrial chains, and we could also see some of this work, the scientific development, and we could also see how we're able to develop our own economy and for our own world. For those we account for 18% of the population. That's how we can make more of a contribution to the globe, and we need to study more of this Pudong's talent mechanism, and we need to leverage the role played by Pudong to serve as the talent hub, and we feel very proud of that. And also we think we will further collaborate with all the scientists at home and abroad so that we can make a better future. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Professor Wang Hong, for your excellent sharing. Then next, we will invite Dr. Deepak Jain, to deliver a speech for us with the retired dean of China-Europe International Business School, because Dr. Deepak was still in quarantine in China. That's why he could only deliver the speech online. Dr. Deepak Jain is a globally recognized marketing and innovation expert. Dr. Deepak Jain received his PhD from the University of Texas in 1986. His research fields include high-tech product marketing, market segmentation, and competitive structure analysis, cross-cultural research of global product diffusion, new product innovation, and a forecasting model. He has published more than 70 academic papers in leading international academic journals. He has won the prestigious John D.C. Little Award for Best Papers, and also won the Contribution Award of the Overseas Indian Experts from the Prime Minister of India. For Dr. Deepak, before taking on the position of European Dean of the CEIBS, he served as the Dean of Northwestern University Business School, Dean of INSEAD Business School in France, and Dean of Chulalongkorn University Business School in Thailand. He strongly advocates all those education model, and he's a professor with lots of this cross-national and multinational development. Dr. Depak's sharing theme will be developing global human talent, transforming from VUCA to CARM. Then let's take a look at the screen, and the floor is now to Dr. Depak.
Thank you, Professor Wei Jong, for the wonderful introduction. I am very glad to participate in the Pudong International Talent Hub Forum. I wish I was there with all of you in person, but I am glad that at least we are digitally connected. You heard from my colleague, President Wong, the whole concept of building a platform for human talent. Today, we are, as she described, in a VUCA world. My talk is going to be based on how we transform ourselves from a VUCA world to a calm personality and attitude. Because VUCA is there, we need to make sure that we are the masters and we are going to drive what Pudong should be and how Pudong can attract, develop, and retain the best human talent. You heard from Professor Dominic, his last words were, attracting and developing human talent is one part of the equation, but the most challenging part is retaining human talent. And I would like to focus my talk on all the three parts: attraction, development, and retention, and how we make Pudong a global hub for human talent. So let me start. First is, you all are familiar with the word VUCA. President Wong clearly mentioned the four letters that you see: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, these four letters are beyond our control. By beyond our control, I mean beyond human control. But what these factors lead to, these factors create stress and anxiety. And when you are stressed and you have anxiety, it affects your productivity. You are not at your best, and when productivity gets affected, it also affects the economic and social development. So this is what we need to reduce. We need to make people more comfortable, energized, and be more productive, peaceful, and happy. Now, what has caused VUCA? I would just like to share with you few disruptions that we have seen in the last 2 decades. It all started with the dot-com bust. That was the first one. At the beginning of this century, we saw many of the internet startups that started in the mid to late 90s. They had an attractive proposition, but not a sound business model, and very soon they were not able to retain their value proposition, and most of them folded. The second big thing that happened, at least in the United States, was the Enron scandal. And this scandal basically highlighted how companies can have financial image and create all the nice, attractive financial results, but inside it was completely shallow. And you can only portray an image for a short term, because once people went deep into it, they found the company could not sustain what it was proposing. The third part came 9/11, September 11th, which was not a financial problem, but what we describe as a terrorist attack. And for me personally, I remember this day very well because this was my first day as the dean of the Kellogg School, when I was welcoming 600 MBA students, and 10 minutes into my presentation, the world changed. After this, we had another disruption, which I would say more related to human aspects, which was SARS. And the reason I bring that is it affected the program that Kellogg had with HKUST, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And given SARS, the best decision I made was to stop the program, because there is nothing more important than human lives. A 6 months delay in the program is fine, but one human life, your consciousness would never allow you to live with that guilt. Then in 2004, we saw another nature disruption, which was tsunami. And again, not to be too personal, me, my wife, and 3 children, we were in Phuket at the beach when tsunami happened. We saw the whole thing with our eyes, but there was someone watching us. Not a single drop of water touched us. And I still remember December 26th morning, 10:05 a.m., when tsunami changed the way we view the world. In 2008, we saw another financial meltdown, which was the financial crisis that we all experienced. Then in 2010, we saw another politically motivated and others called the Arab Spring. Then came another, I would say, natural or human related problem of the COVID in the late 2019, early 2020, which has changed the way we view the world, and still it's not completely gone. After that, we saw the beginning of this year another big issue called the war in Ukraine. And you see, almost in a 20-year, 2 decades, we have, at least I have just highlighted 9 major events. These are beyond our control, but what it's going to do is, there is everyone, if you see the news today, it says that it is going to lead to some potential economic recession. And economic recession means it would also affect the quality of human lives. Now, these are challenges, these are interruptions, and these are beyond human control. Now, how do we create an agenda that would be attractive to people, but how we create a platform, an institution which would make things better? Because as both Professor Dominic and President Wong mentioned, if we have to prosper, we have to nurture the best human talent. And an organization like CEIBS, we are in the business of shaping the future. We look at attracting people in whom we build skills, tools, and concepts, and they become the leaders of the future. Either they become economic or corporate leaders or social leaders, or even what I would describe as good human beings that are going to make a difference in the world. So I would propose a framework that I have developed, what I call the calm attitude. Though we have the VUCA world, how we build internally a positive outlook, because your strength is to look at the world still in a positive way. Negativity would lead to loss of productivity and also may make you feel depressed. So let me propose a methodology called CALM. The first letter C stands for compassion. By compassion, I mean we need to create a work culture where people care and share their views. Human life is about caring and sharing. We can only prosper if people around us are also happy and cheerful. And when your team members are happy and cheerful, they will work with you and create a more positive environment. The letter A stands for what I call acceptance culture. Tsunami happened. You cannot change it. You have to accept. And acceptance culture means whatever has happened. Now, how do we move forward? What is going to be the future of work and workplace? With the arrival of COVID, we have seen one major change, that the future of workplace is not going to be that people go to work all 5 days of the week. Some companies have mandated that you can come 3 days in the office, 2 days in the office. The most important thing is not the number of days you are physically present, but how we enhance the productivity and how we make you feel safe, secured, and productive. So acceptance culture means accept what has happened, but not let it affect your work. Move forward. The third part is L stands for lifelong learning. Once you accept what has happened, learn from it. A mistake is a mistake if repeated twice. Otherwise, it's a learning experience. I learned a lot when 9/11 happened. I was the dean of the school. 9/11 happened, and I knew that this is going to affect the economic outlook, and students who have come to get jobs would be affected. So I took a proactive approach in contacting companies and created a total corporate visit program. And I tell you, in 2002, we had at Kellogg School the best placement rate, and we were rated the #1 business school in the world. And on the cover of Business Week, I was there with my students. Life is about lifelong learning. Everything happens in life, there is a purpose behind it, and we need to learn from it. Institutions like CEIBS are places of learning. You come here to learn from the teachers, from your colleagues, from your classmates, from the alumni. And I have always believed that the word learning leads to excellence, and excellence has no bounds. There is no upper limit. You can always keep learning. And the M stands for mindset. How you look at the world all depends on you. If you have a positive mindset, you would see positivity around you. This is, to me, the crux of humanity. Your view of the world is all internal, not external. And that's why you heard when President Wong was mentioning about all the economic developments and the challenges, for us, it is important that we stay together as a team. We care and share, and we all think that we are human beings, and our goal is to make sure that we create an environment that has peace, harmony, and prosperity. So now I will use this calm attitude in terms of how we go about building a nation, a city, or a community. Professor Dominic is a professor of marketing. I am a professor of marketing. And for both of us, there is a word that we use called branding. And branding means how you differentiate yourself or how you market yourself as something unique and valuable. So I will propose a framework for how we brand a nation, a city, and basically branding means how we build competitive advantage. And I would like to focus on building competitive advantage for the Pudong community, where I have I have been part of this community. CEIBS is part of this community, and how we make sure that we become a center of excellence. So when we think of branding a nation or a city, there are dimensions on which you create differentiation. So the first is what's unique about you. And what about you means what product or service do you offer? Everything in the world starts with that. Why should I buy your product? What's unique about your product? And that is where the first thing, what do we offer to our customers or to our clients or to our citizens? The second part is from product, the place. If somebody has to come and work in Shanghai or to come and work in Chicago, you need to think about what would attract the person to come there. The product, maybe the job is very good, but that's only one part of the equation. The second part is how good is the place? Is this place very good to live with? How safe it is to live there? So place also matters, because place leads to good schools, your family, and how they would feel living there. And the third part is the people. People means the citizens of the community, the people within the corporation that you work with, a sense of collegiality that we create, because we all should feel excited getting up in the morning and thinking, let's go to work. I get up in the morning and look forward to being in my office, having a cup of tea there, and talking to my friends and colleagues on the campus. If you look at all these three, product, place, and people, the crux, the core essence is what I call the holistic brand value, or what are the key values that is common across the product, place, people, and these core values become your part of differentiation, or this leads to competitive advantage. So this is a structure that I'm going to use and just explain how we can use this structure to brand a nation, a city, or a community. So let me give you a couple of examples that how this has been used. Okay. So first I will start with how we brand a nation. And I would use US, where I have spent the last 40 years. I came there to do my PhD in 1982. And I did my PhD, as Professor Wejong said, in Dallas, Texas. And I just tell you, when I landed in Dallas, Texas, from a small town in India, the airport of Dallas, the airport was bigger than the town where I was born and raised. So imagine the size and what a shock I had. Now, when you look at a country like US, and I look at the three parts, the product, the place, and the people, let me start with the product side for US. If you look at US and look at the product side, you would see that what is there for US to offer, and you can see that what I have listed there is at US, you have consumer products, you have industrial products, you have high tech, and you have hospitality, health, and others. This morning, I read an article about Procter and Gamble. You see the leading consumer companies in US. You look the leading industrial companies like Caterpillar, John Deere. You look the entire high-tech world starting from the Microsoft, the Intels, the Facebook, the Googles, and the others. You look at health, and you look at hospitality, the airlines, the hotels, and others. US is a country that has really built global products that today very difficult for X billion people in the world to think about their day without touching a product made in the US. When you look at the place part of US, then you would see that US is blessed both with natural and man-made attractions. When you look at natural, you see the Niagara Falls, you see the Grand Canyon, you can have man-made attractions, the Disneys of the world, the Hollywood, and which means that it's not only Mother Nature that has blessed United States, what we call nature and nurture. People have also made the best use of the natural products and created something that has become an attractive proposition for people to come to United States. And the third part is what we have said is the people, and people means how we have talented people, and the real part of people is strong work ethics. This is what I have seen. I went there, learned. Strong work ethics means you strive for excellence. From mediocrity to meritocracy. This is what I learned in US. And when you combine the work culture with the kind of corporations that are there, the place, the vibrant place, we describe US. If I have to brand US, I would say US is a land of opportunity. It opens doors for you. It provides you with remarkable opportunities, but you have to make it happen. I never believe in the world that life is a gift. It becomes, you make it a gift. I was fortunate when both the Chinese and the Europeans decided to appoint me as the European president. Just imagine, a person born in India, an American citizen, was appointed as the European president for the top business school in China. This is global. India, US, China, Europe, and a person standing or just before you digitally today, it was another opportunity for me to serve this great institution. And I feel very fortunate to have excellent colleagues to work with. And as you saw in President Wong's presentation, our Global Executive MBA program happens to be the second best in the program. Our MBA program is ranked 16, and part of it, I would say, are the external factors that affected. We used to be among the top 5 business schools, and we will work together to again bring ourselves there once we are out of the COVID influence. US being a land of opportunity, we have to think about Pudong also as a land that can attract people and people feel this is a place to come, and I will show you how. The second place where I spent some time is how we brand a city. When I was the dean of INSEAD, though INSEAD is in a suburb of Paris called Fontainebleau, but you live in Fontainebleau, you always feel that Paris is next door. When you think of Paris, you think of the attractions there. And again, let me put Paris on the framework that I proposed. So first is the product. When you look at a place like Paris, the product happens to be what we describe as French food. You have educational and cultural institutions. France has a long history of great educational and cultural institutions, or what I would call places of learning, but also with very good French food. Food affects your mood, and your mood affects your productivity and your research output. When you look at the place, the landmark of Paris happens to be the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre Museum, lots of attractions in that city. When I was young, there was a very famous movie in India, an Indian Bollywood movie called An Evening in Paris. It was a super hit movie. This is 1968-69. I never knew a day would come when, for me, an evening in Paris would become every evening in Paris when I lived there. This is the place there. And when you look at people, the people in France, you can say, they have what I call a sense of romantic feeling. Romantic sensibility to me is a very positive outlook, a sense of belonging. And that's why when you think of Paris, you think a city of lights and love. And my C word that you used, compassion, for you to be compassionate, you have to have a sense of belonging, a sense of love. And light means, by light I means it opens your mind, you attract people because of your personality. So that's what I would describe Paris as, the city of lights and love. So this is how you think of Paris. Now let's come to our subject matter today. And that is how we think of branding Pudong. Why should somebody come to Pudong? What is Pudong? What is attractive about this community? How we make Pudong a hub for human talent, which is the theme of today's conference, that how we think of human talent as an attractive proposition for the city or the community of Pudong. Again, on the product side, if you look at Pudong, what are the key products we have? We can see that our people here, when you think of, we have world-class institutions, entrepreneurial spirit, and fintech. So one very important thing is the presence of CEIBS is a very important milestone for Pudong, because first, to attract and develop human talent, you need a base like CEIBS. And it's not just a degree programs. This is also all the executive education programs that when people come to work here, you remember my letter L, lifelong learning. There has to be a place where people can constantly learn and become better. Entrepreneurial spirit does not mean that you have to start an organization. Entrepreneurship always makes you think creatively, think How can we do this thing differently? Why should we follow the status quo? That kind of spirit is there. And with the given emphasis on artificial intelligence and Shanghai being a financial hub, how we combine finance with technology. When you look at the place part, we are blessed that Pudong is part of Shanghai's industrial base, the infrastructure of Shanghai, and also the international connectivity. For you to attract human talent today, you need to be a place which is globally connected. And Shanghai, next door, being Pudong, being a part of Shanghai, today you can go anywhere in the world and the distance is not the geographical distance. I always say jokingly, geography has become history. What is more important is your digital connectivity, connectivity of the mind, and that's what is very unique about Shanghai as a base. And then when you come to people, you would see again in Pudong, I feel people have very strong work culture and work ethics. I have interacted with people at CIBS. I have interacted with lots of my alumni who have started very successful organizations here. One of the flagship programs of CIBS happens to be our executive MBA programs. MBA programs are there and a lot of executive education training programs. So if I have to see what are the core values, I would describe Pudong is driven by three I's: intellect, imagination, and innovation. We all have to imagine, and that's part of entrepreneurial spirit. Imagine creativity. Intellect is your power. Intellect means your logical power of analyzing, and then innovation is doing something new and different. So if I have to summarize Pudong, I would say that if I have to say, like for Paris being a city of light or something, if I would say Pudong is a vibrant community driven by human talent and development. And as my colleague Dominic said, that these are the two necessary conditions, but then the question is the retention part. And for retention, I go to the next piece, which is branding of CIBS, the presence of CIBS. This is to me a remarkable addition to what we have in Pudong, an institution like CIBS. And again, when you look at CIBS, we offer several products to the community, both the local, the national, and the international community. We have lots of products like the MBA, EMBA, GAMBA, HAMBA, all the degree programs that we offer, those are our products and services. Then when you look at the place, as I said, CEIBS is not only in Pudong, being part of the dynamic and vibrant Shanghai. So when people ask me, CEIBS, where is it? I say it's in Shanghai. Then the lights go on. Everyone say, wow, you are in Shanghai? I said, yes, we are in Shanghai. And we are in one of the most attractive parts of Shanghai, close to the airport. All the positive things that I share with them, that's the place. And then when you look at the people, you would see on the people side, we have what I would describe, what I like about CIBS is that our approach of a collaborative culture, an entrepreneurial culture, but a welcoming attitude. My colleague Dominic would also add, he has just taken over the position I had for 5 years. It's a very welcoming, you feel like a member of a family. That's how I have been always being, what I would say that I have always felt a sense of welcome whenever I put my feet as I land at the airport, starting from the landing to coming to the campus, CEIBS what we call one CEIBS or one extended family. So if I put all these things together, and then we would say, what is our unique part? And that's what I would say the her culture. The her culture is a culture of collaboration. The her culture is a team spirit. We all work together and we should have a common vision that how we make Pudong, Shanghai, China a part of this vibrant community in the world, which would attract the best minds, the beautiful minds to come, learn, and work and contribute to global peace, harmony, and prosperity. So if you have to say what does CEIBS stands for, then you would see that we say CEIBS has this collaborative culture, and I believe that we should have mutual respect and trust. And everyone at CEIBS has heard me say, we would like the world to say that CEIBS is one of the most respected business school in the world. Not only most reputed, but most of the respected world in the school. So just to conclude, I have some lessons that I have learned over the years because of the VUCA world. From all these disruptions that I mentioned at the beginning, I want to leave all of you with three major lessons that I have learned. First is difficulties come in our way to make us better, not bitter. Difficulties would always come. Don't get depressed or stressed. Learn from it and move forward. As I say, difficulties may have a bitter taste, but a better aftertaste. 9/11 happened, I learned from it, and I feel blessed that those things I would not have learned otherwise. The second thing I say is a very important lesson that I have seen is uncertainty is inevitable. That is beyond your control. But worrying is optional. Don't worry about it. What has happened has happened. Believe in this culture of acceptance. And because if you worry, you will create more stress, not only for you, but for people around you. So worrying is optional. Don't worry about it. But the most important thing is put an action plan. What do you do next? And here, work with your colleagues, create a task force within the company, within the school, and say how we can now help people moving forward. So I say uncertainty is inevitable, worrying is optional, but timely action is essential. Don't sit idle, make the best use of it. And finally, eyes on the horizon, feet on the ground. Don't lose touch of reality. Eyes on the horizon means have a great vision, but don't lose touch of reality. And the thing is how you steer the ship in the right direction. And I would just conclude with my experience during the tsunami time. I was at the beach with my wife and 3 children. Tsunami happened. We saw the whole waves coming towards us. It was like Niagara Falls coming towards you, but there was someone watching us. Not a drop of water touched us. What did I learn from it? That during tsunami, a lot of people died, but not a single animal died. There was no animal. And in Thailand, as you know, on the beach, you would see lots of dogs running around. You see sometimes elephants are there to show you tricks and others. When tsunami happened, not a single animal died. I reflected on it. And the reason is animals have their feet on the ground. They could feel that earthquake beneath. And when they felt that earthquake, they knew this is not the earth on which they normally live. So they all ran away from the sea towards the mountains and the jungles because they could feel the tremor. Who died? People on the beach who were in hammocks. They didn't know what was happening on the earth. So, as a leader, don't lose touch of the reality. difficulties would come. Keep your feet on the ground, eyes on the horizon, think of the future, and make sure that this VUCA world with the calm attitude would point you in the right direction. We at CEIBS has faced the COVID world, but in spite of that, under the leadership of previously President Lee and now President Wong, I am sure the best days of CEIBS are ahead of us. I feel that though VUCA can create and make stress, I feel blessed that I had a chance to work at this great institution, and we are all there with the people of Pudong to make Pudong a global hub for human talent. And whatever I can ever do, as I say, Deepak Jain is always there to make sure that Pudong becomes a center for human talent development and retention. Thank you for making me speak to all of you, and you always have a friend in Deepak. Thank you again.
Thank you, Professor Deepak Jain, for your wonderful sharing. And actually, you have mentioned about the features of Pudong new area. Pudong should be a dynamic, a gathering place for talents. I think that's quite in line with our topic. Next, we will invite a very famous professor of CEIBS, and he is the academic director of DBA course and emeritus honorary professor of accounting, Dr. Huang Yuchang. And he received the PhD from the University of California, Berkeley in 1987. He is a tenured honorary professor of accounting at CEIBS, a chair professor of accounting at Spanish Commercial Bank, and academic director of DBA course. And from 2007 and 2009, he was elected as the Secretary General of American Accounting Association Management Accounting Group and served as the editorial board member of several world-class academic journals. His papers were published in academic journals such as Management Science, Accounting Research Review, and Accounting Review. It's fair to say that he is the most famous Chinese scholar in this field, and he also assumed many titles for the independent board director of many large companies in China. Today, Dr. Huang Yuchang will bring us a topic of evaluation and incentive mechanism of talents in science and technology enterprises under digital intelligence. Now, let's give the floor to Dr. Huang Yuchang. Honorable leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for your kind introduction. I'm humbled, and now my hair turned gray, so quite similar with the previous speaker. We have something in common, just like the several speakers, the leaders. We came from different corners of the world, India, America, and I came from Taipei, and then I went to the US, and later on I came back to Shanghai. Over the past decade, I had a deep feeling, especially in Pudong, and worked together with CEIBS, worked together with so many excellent leaders and executives. It's my great honor to gather together with all of you. Professor Wang studied from urban planning for talents development and policies. It was quite detailed. And Professor Dominic provided us with some wisdom and philosophy, guide our thinking how to cultivate talent to build a great city. And for me, myself, I will touch on the most detailed perspective. I can only share what I knew, so my topic compared with the several speakers perhaps is not that consistent because it's very detailed, because what I mainly want to introduce is a tool to attract talents. How, or do we have anything, any tools to make Pudong or the whole nation in the next few years in terms of companies' cultivation of talents? We can have a better contribution with such a tool. Let me give you a quite simple tool, which is actually a new one in the Starboard, something quite frequently seen around recent 2 to 3 years. We know that the Starboard and Enterprising Board are incentive plans for companies, enterprises, innovation. And it is adopting a registration system. Here we have simple statistics. So far, by this year, the Starboard using the Class 2 restrict shares accounting for around 95.54%, which means that each science and technology company in this board adopted such a solution. And then by October 31st, 2022, around 70% of the incentive of shares plan that was the ratio. And quite interesting. From the perspective of institution layout, the restricted shares is actually a discounted options. Why didn't the U.S. companies adopt that? Why Chinese companies choose that? And why China's regulatory commission allow such a policy? What about its impact for talents attraction? Next, I'd like to spend several minutes to share with you about my understanding for this topic. Let me walk you through several statistics. Just now, the professors shared with us a lot of data. I will start from the perspective of human resource. We know that in Shanghai, the average salary and social security base is climbing up, which means that the annually salary growth was in a double digit. If the value creation rate is not bigger than the annual growth rate of salary, then our productivity will be decreased. And the final result is that the company will be bankruptcy in the market. That's something beyond your expectation. When we make a comparison for these two companies, one is Alibaba, the other is 7-Eleven. They have a big difference in employees figure. The average profit for employee is basically the same. And if we take a look at North America high-tech companies, in Netflix, revenue per employee is around 2.3 million. And in Alibaba, it's around 600,000 US dollars. Why there was such a big difference? If we go further into this perspective, I listed the major listed companies in the Enterprising Board and Starboard.
And for us, the most important thing is that we need to select the science and technology industries because we have lots of the data. So that's why I only list the first 25 metropolises, including Shanghai. So this figure also come as a surprise to me because for this average development, we can actually see Xiamen ranks the top among all the other cities. Shanghai ranks second among the 25 cities. And we have another statistic here for you just to serve as the reference. One is the average salary. That is to see the white line here sorry, let me switch to the previous slide. So for the average wage and for the red line, that's for the average revenue. So including for all the companies listed on China's stock exchange, on the stock market, this has all been included in this number. And this is the numbers for all the patents. We only see the invention patents, not the others. Then, of course, you can see, so all these countries leading the patents in China, that will be Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen. This is for sure something that we're aware of, but quite interestingly, at the same time, we see another number is the number of public companies. Then indeed, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Beijing, these three cities have the largest proportion. This is also quite for sure. My slides are quite simple, and also this is another slide to show you. Let's take a look on this part here for all the companies listed on the stock market. So they're mainly in Shanghai. Shanghai is served as the main offices. So we could see all the offices mainly operate in Shanghai. Shanghai has the highest percentage, the proportion of all the public companies listed on the stock market to operate mainly in Shanghai. If we say Shanghai, Beijing, and Shenzhen combined all together, over 50%, 60% of the stock market listed companies operate in these three cities. Then for this slide, what we are able to tell, we could also see Shanghai plays a very important role, especially for future technology development, future talents. These are very important. At the same time, we've also seen some quite interesting numbers for the average income. It's not necessarily the highest. And we will also see, so for this future, for the stock market, this is the future that we expected. We'll also see the average revenue. If we only restrict all these references on the stock market, these figures are even more interesting. Let's move to the slide and take a look at it. So also for this part here, this is about our average salary and average profit. If we only take a look at the companies listed on the stock market, then here you can see from all these statistics, what we're able to tell is that quite obviously in many cities, the average revenue is way lower than the average salary. For the average revenue, it's lower than the average salary. In another word, for all the companies, in order to maintain its operation over the long run, it couldn't just rely on the cash to serve as its own remuneration and incentives. And we also see the statistics here for our labor costs. Every year we are growing at double digit. Then how we're able to solve such a conflict here? Then we could also see quite an interesting situation here for the dilemma of all the companies listed on the stock market. The issue is that they don't have high revenue enough, but they have very much growth potential. But at the same time, like we just mentioned, the high potential also goes along with high risks. And all the public companies listed on the stock market for this average wage, it's not comparable to its average revenue. That is to say, quite obviously, if we simply relying on the wages or remuneration, it couldn't really cover the growth, the attraction, and retention of all the talents. So we have to rely on the stock options. So stocks and the future options are very important for us to make up for all the needs to attract and retain the talents. And very soon, we know that for most of the countries, most of the companies, they could select basically two types of the stocks and options. One is the restrictive stocks, another is the options. So for the restrictive stocks, basically that's discounted stocks. Simply put, the current stock price is 100. I give it to you at a price of 50. Or for some of these U.S. companies, they even give it for free. And for the options, what that is for this future valuation opportunities. Only when the stock price will increase, the management team could earn the dividend. So that is what the companies really want. They want the employees to create values, to create greater market valuation. Then that's how they are able to profiteer from all this valuation for the stock price. Then these are the frequently seen settings, and for normally for the stock prices, they have to be sold at the current stock price. Let's take China's stock exchange market as an example. So when you give that stocks to your employees or to give the options to that, the price could not be lower than that of the current stock price. This is basically on the same par as the global level here. This is quite an interesting phenomenon here. Let's take all the companies listed in the China stock market. Those people exercising options are not that many, because only when the price is higher, they could get a dividend. But when the price decreases, the management team gets nothing back. So most of the management team requires the companies to give them the restrictive shares as well, because restricted shares is something that you're able to see, you're able to have, because they're simply discounted stocks. But for the time that you get it, you have to pay for the amount of the shares. Then the question is here, what are the differences? Because the valuation for the options, it basically just only count for 1/5 of the restrictive shares. So if I give you the same amount of incentives, I give you 1 million, then the option that you get could be compared to the traditional method, that will be around 5 times of that. So you have more of those incentives. Then the leverage is really high. Then the leverage is really high. Why some people prefer not to do that? Because sometimes you might get nothing back. When the stock price is on decrease, you cannot get anything back. Then for our own nation's stock market, we have done something else, because you could also see for us just to work in the stock market, and we could also see for others equipment we have invested in the equipment and the R&D. Then how much is left to give out to the management team? When the cash is not that enough, well, what can we do? Then we will roll out all the restrictive shares. Then the issue is here, when the restricted shares are not that enough, then are we providing enough incentives to the management team? The management team may say that you're not giving me enough incentives. You give me this option, I want it, but I cannot pay for this kind of option. You get my point? Then here is the issue. When I cannot claim all the options and the company couldn't allow the financing for the companies to give out all the options to you, then here comes a second type restrictive shares. So for this type here, you could actually see the valuation of the stocks, and for the stock options, there are different times of this valuation. If we take a comparison of all that, you can see the options is valued, the restrictive shares valuation is around 2.5 times higher than that of the normal stock shares. Then that is to say, for you just to get one restricted share for the same amount of money, you're able to trade for 2.5 stock options. So according to the new regulations released by the government, we have this second type of the restrictive stocks, which is launched by the nations. Then what do we mean by the secondary type restrictive shares? That is mainly to make up for the situation that the employees have to pay out of their pocket with cash. Then once it has been released in terms of the market, you're able to cash out all the dividends on the market. It may sound very different, because you may see that it looks like a restricted share because it's discounted as well. But when you get it, it feels like an option. But instead, it wouldn't really have the risks of all the options. Then why do I put it in this way? Because first of all, you don't need to pay for it. You don't need to pay anything out of your pocket, so there are no risks entailed. And the second is that because it is counted, you have your payment or incentive right away. So this is the best for all the management team. And also, please take a look at it for the secondary type of restrictive shares. The incentives, as long as they have got all this, when they are eligible for the some of these conditions, you're able to get all these stocks. And the second is that we have covered all these incentive beneficiaries to a wider range. So those shareholders who have control over 5%, the actual controllers, spouses, parents, and sons, and daughters, and siblings, and foreign nationality staff can all be entitled to that. So that is mainly for the nation to encourage innovation. We want to give out stronger incentives, greater innovation, and we have also expanded the coverage range. You no longer need to pay for it. You can just cash out and profiteer all the dividends in it. And then there's another issue here, that is, will it entail higher costs for our own company? Second question is, if the management team doesn't have any risk, then how about the responsibility that it undertakes? How about this potential ethical risks? These are things that we need to consider. So these are the three tools that we compare here for the traditional stocks, secondary type restrictive stocks, and the stock options. So we call the secondary type as restrictive stocks itself. Essentially speaking, it is a discounted option. It's just a discounted option. It's not necessarily a restrictive stocks. And also it has covered a greater range of people. So basically everyone could have this. As long as you hold a post in a company, you can have this range, this condition. The range has been expanded, the conditions have been loosened. You need to be working for the company for over 1 year, but there were no other conditions attached. That is mainly to protect all the talents working in all those companies. Then for all the things that we have here, then why other companies are not practicing this? So let's first take a look at its cost. For the secondary type restrictive options, if we discounted for 40% or even 60%, so traditionally speaking, if we discounted 50%, then for the secondary restrictive stocks, that will be around 120% of the cost of those traditional options. The company has higher costs. The management team will be delighted because they are able to profiteer without paying out of their own pocket first. Then why wouldn't we practice it altogether? Why the US public, most of the public companies, they are not willing to practice that? So this is something that makes you feel quite interesting to ponder on. I'd like to simply share one thing here. Strong incentives will definitely increase the risks along with it. And also I'd like to ask for risks, our own thinking in terms of risks. Is it enough or not? So this is something I hope everyone could think of it. It's very important to attract talents, but we don't want to attract speculative talents. We want an innovative companies, but we don't want a speculative company. For traditional stock option, because it's sold according to the market evaluation, the staff could only earn the value add in the future. So that's why the company has to increase all those business that they are able to enjoy all this cash dividends. And we could also see this work. And then while you can do that, when you unlock it, you no longer need to pay for all that. Only when you exercise the stock options, you need to pay for that. So there's one big issue along with it. So basically the management team is cashing out the interest dividend, and when you get all the shares, you're able to get all this cash dividend. And so this is what we call it as unqualified incentive option plan. Then based on this National Tariff Bureau, it has been deemed as the normal income. That is to say, for any company to give out to your any staff, if it's a discounted option, you have to pay the tax, and it has to be the normal income tax. And conversely, if we exercise the traditional option, then once you sell all the options and you hold it for over a year, I could actually only pay the 15% of the capital beneficiary tax. It's way lower than our normal income tax.
So we know that the companies didn't choose that because of the high taxation ratio The reason why the National Taxation Bureau levy taxes because that's actually income. So we need to ask ourselves one question: do we have better ways for that? Especially in Pudong as a leading area because we have so many companies listed in the starboard. So let me give you a quick summary for that. Yes, we actually can practice that, but should be in the right way. Say, I want to attract talents, but companies doesn't have capital. They can use cash for that, and employees do not have money to buy restricted shares. We can use options, but we'd like to make people see that it is something good to gain the interest, but I only have a small requirement for all of the design. All of them should consider how we can retain talent, which means that once it is relocked, whether we need to add more conditions for that or should we extend the lock-in period. Perhaps more people will be against that because it is detrimental to their own interest. However, if we look at it in return, how we can avoid companies to practice short-term interest pursuit, if we have ways to extend the lock-in period or have more conditions, prerequisites for that, actually, the country can consider for several relative taxation to make it become capital revenue. I think this is a win-win situation. First, we can encourage incentivize talent. Second, we can encourage companies to adopt a long-term thinking. Number three, we can even encourage employees to stay together with the long-term benefit of the company instead of just short-term benefit. So that's actually all I want to share with you. But for star market, that's quite a heated debated topic because we're seeing that almost every enterprise are practicing that, how national policies, how the mechanisms, how taxation policies can do that. I'm just actually leaving this in your mind. I shared about both advantages and disadvantages, and I hope that the decision makers can consider that we can utilize different ways compared to the US, compared to other countries, with better policies to extend to retain talents. But in terms of physical and taxation policies, whether we can retain more talents, that's to change the short speculation for talent. So I think that's actually the best way to retain talent. Thank you very much. I actually conclude before the scheduled time. Thank you, Professor Huang Yuchang, for your wonderful sharing. And he actually introduced one specific measure to retain and incentivize talents because it is related with government taxation bureaus and enterprises. It's quite in-depth. Thank you, Dr. Huang Yuchang, again for your sharing. Next is the round table that you are looking forward. The topic of this year's roundtable or panel is that to build digitalization and resilience, a new insight into the future work world and workplace catalyzed by the digitalization. And the moderator of the roundtable is Professor of Li Xiujuan from CEIBS. Dr. Li Xiujuan is Michelin Chair Professor of Leadership and Human Resources, Professor of Management at CEIBS, Associate Provost for Research Affairs, and she was former head of the Department of Organizational Behavior and Human Resources and co-director of China-European Family Inheritance Research Center. Dr. Li has provided consulting services and implemented training programs in many multinational companies and domestic and foreign organizations, including Singapore Airlines, Brunei Airlines, Singapore Dehua Industry Holding Company. Dr. Li has won several outstanding teaching awards and outstanding leadership service awards, including China Outstanding Human Resources Education Award, Outstanding Businesswoman Award and the Outstanding Teaching Award of CEIBS. In 2015, she was selected as one of the 25 best scholars in the field of family business by British Family Capital Association. Now, let's give the floor to Madam Li Xiujuan. And again, we'd like to introduce about the panelists for this roundtable. In total, we have 5 panelists joining the discussion. The first one is actually the management professor from CEIBS and vice provost, European Affairs of China, Europe International Business School, director of HEMBA and doctor and DBA course, and Bayer Leadership Chair Professor. Professor Xinrong attended our panel last year. I think you are familiar with her. The second speaker is AMP Joint Course Director and Professor Management Practice of CEIBS, Madam Chen Shaohui, as judge, and he is also an old friend of us. The third panelist is actually Dr. Gong Yan, a Director of Entrepreneurship Camp Course and Professor of Entrepreneurship Management Practice. He was also the panelist last year and also old friend of us. We also have 2 enterprises representatives, very excellent executives. The first panelist is Madam Liu Ying, Party Secretary and Chairman of Zhangjiang High-Tech Co. Limited, and she has actually got a Master of Finance and Senior MBA of Guanghua School of Management, Peking University, Senior Economist, and she is actually the developer of industrial ecological designer of the Zhangjiang Science City, and a very excellent. The last panelist is Mr. Huang Jia, the chief partner of PwC Shanghai, the vice president of Shanghai Association Enterprises with Foreign Investment, and a special expert in decision-making consultation of Shanghai Municipal People's Government. He is also an EMBA alumni of CEIBS. He is currently in Hainan. Will join us virtually. Now, let's give the floor to our moderator and invite the several panelists to join on the stage. Warmly welcome. Distinguished guests, good afternoon. This afternoon, we have heard insights from the several distinguished speakers. They have shared with us about the wisdom sharing from them, and Dr. Dominic shared with us competitiveness, not only just about resources and technology, it was also about talent competition. And basically, he introduced one important idea. Once we get talent, we can gain good and quality development. So talent competition will be quite fierce in the future. And Professor Wang shared with us from the perspective of science and technology innovation, industrial innovation, revolution, and it was the era we are now in is witnessing huge changes, and it also brought a lot of uncertainties and opportunities. He actually listed generally over 80 different industrial tracks for us with new opportunities, but that also brings us challenges and how we can utilize brand new talents to fit into it. And digitalization, transformation, globalization are also bringing new challenges against such a backdrop. What kind of talent do we need? And then Professor also listed about the black swan as well as gray rhino events, and it was actually very impressive. Our human society can gather and pull our wisdom together to overcome various challenges, natural disasters, or human made catastrophes. But with our efforts, collected energy, and wisdom, human can still create a very good future. And then Dr. Huan is actually a renowned professor in CEIBS, and he has very in-depth experience and how we can better inspire talents, encourage talents, in what kind of way can we do it? And there might be danger, but new possibilities in between, and how we can better encourage talents and future needs, especially innovative ones. Those are something needs our worthwhile for our thinking. And the several distinguished experts' opening remarks actually enlightened us, because in this area we suffered huge uncertainties for enterprises, for individuals. What can we do? So this is the round table. We have invited different panelists sharing from different perspectives to talk about the relationship, how we respond to those challenges to attract talent, to encourage talent. So, first of all, I'd like to invite my colleague and also a good friend of mine, Professor Xin Rong, to share with us about organization, new features in this digitalized area, how employees and organizations generate a new impact or new relationship form. Well, thank you, Professor Xiujun. Well, in the digital world, I think, first of all, it's actually changed the productivity and production relationship. Due to artificial intelligence, we are now seeing efficiency increase, whether production or service qualities, they are all improving. In terms of production relation, it is also undergoing profound changes. Considering about external environments and enterprises, the competition is beyond any single independent industry, not just within industries, companies. It's actually about the relationship between different ecological chains. It is competition, but also needs cooperation. For enterprises, what kind of features or new characteristics do they need to have? First, from enterprise culture, it should be altruism, because we need to build an ecological system. Altruism should come first, so that the enterprises as well as the growth environment of the company can be good, enabling.
The second is that because our productivity relationship has undergone some changes, our cooperation, competition, our relationship with employees have also undergone profound changes. Our administration and governance mechanism will change accordingly. Then, in the structure, that is also a very important control mechanism. We need to be more personalized. For many companies, there are different organization forms. So before Professor Li has mentioned the relationship between employees and organizations, there are many changes. Because for our staff and organization, before we have this employment relationship, in the future, as we have more freelancers, then its relationship with the corporation will be more about win-win results, more about coordination, so our own organizational structure need to be more personalized. And the third feature is that for our management method and perspective, because digitization has given us lots of the empowerment, so we could be practicing more accurate and segmentized management because we're able to collect more data while we are doing all the policies, all the data. We're seeing a lot more. We're able to have more comprehensive data, more real time. I think this is what we see in our own organization. There are many changes. So our own organization, the talent development, like simply put, in the coming future, the relationship will be collaboration, a win-win results, and how we're able to contribute to each other. This is all I need to share. Thank you so much. All right, thank you so much, Professor Xing, for pointing out the diverging forms of the organization relationship between the organization and the employees. There might be some changes, and all those changes there might be more altruism and more personalized development, and also our relationship between different individuals. We will emphasize more about the cooperation. I think in this type, I think for those of us, we have already felt all that. And we've also talked a lot about some of these new tracks. We need to have some of the new talents and these new talents. So how we're able to define all the talents, those innovative talents. So how we think these are the talents that we need for the future. Then we will invite Professor Gong to share with us for the innovative talent in the future, how we can define that and how what kind of capacity you think they should have. All right, thank you so much, Professor Lee. So we've actually discussed a lot about the digitization's revolutionary changes, and all those changes they will actually be exemplified in such a new era for the talent, how we can redefine all the talents in each era. The definition of the talent there might be some changes, so sometimes the changes might be even bigger. Then in the Industrial Revolution, we would actually have a diverse definition on the innovative talent in a certain field. We could have this deeply rooted cultivation, the work, so be it for the depth or the intensity, the density of the knowledge, we could all be an expert, and then we're able to be in a field and the work, and we will also see how we're able define all the work. And like the professor has also mentioned, it will brought about some revolutionary changes, including for our innovations, new perspectives changes. My personal perspective is that besides the new changes that you have just mentioned, there were two dimensions for the innovation talent. It would actually bring about some of the new challenges. The first perspective is that we are undergoing very quick iteration of all the knowledge, the accumulation of all this knowledge. Relatively speaking, we could be more easily to access that, and it will iterate quite quickly. Just several days ago, I'm not sure whether you've paid attention to it, around 2 to 3 years ago, for the global AI airlines called OpenAI. It has launched a chat GPT. It has been released for just 5 days, and we have over 1 million users already. For this, the chat GPT, as long as you input several keywords, it could help you write a whole article. So basically, it's even better than what we write for the college entrance examinations. So across different dimensions, we can see for the simple knowledge access way or the experience access or structural access, we have lowered the threshold for such a article, the cost will be several cents US dollars. Elon Musk asked for each of the answer, how much does it cost? And the answer is that it's around several cents USD. That is just to say that for today's innovation, there will be some disruptive changes. That is to say, for your structural knowledge and experience, pretty much soon, the value of it will vanish and the iteration process will be quite quick. And for us just to redefine that, I think the iteration of the knowledge, the access of that, and how we can lower the threshold of the access of the knowledge, I think it will bring to us new ways to redefine the knowledge, and including how we could define the internal organization's productivity, the learning, and all that. And against the original mode, experience is very important. It's very hard to gain access to it. Then again, such a new model, at the same time, it could also become a liability pretty soon, and just like a double-edged sword or the two sides of the coin. So for such as a structural knowledge, if it's easier to access, but it's also very easy to be outdated from a organization's innovation structure. We will see how we're able just to see all that, and sometimes when we lose all the knowledge, there might be a very strong capability or even a rare capability for an organization. How we're able to be flexible across all aspects. I can learn quickly, forget quickly. This is actually very important for the innovative talent. It has posed some of the new challenges. Then first, to get back to what Professor Lee has mentioned from our definition for the talent, I think today there were two key dimensions. Our definition for the traditional talents, on top of that, we need to have two key dimensions. One is that we need to keep our sensitivity to the engine computing, to the engine information. I think this is a quite important dimension for some of the um, marginalized technologies, marginalized breakthrough that might seem quite oblivious. Very soon it will become the mainstream. So we need to stay sensitive to all those technologies. That is the another dimension. Another dimension is more about this productivity, because our own experience has been overturned, has been iterated over the time. So our innovation for today's world, we actually need to have a very active exploration of this work. For our marginalized technologies, marginalized trend, we needed to connect all that quite quickly. And for such connectivity, you might get some of the new species, some of the new development, and it will also breed a lot more new opportunities so that we are able to see some of the new trends. Then on the previous definition of this innovative trend, I think all those two dimensions, this could be known as the two new features of that. One is we need to stay open, another is that we need to stay interconnected. Thank you so much. So it sounds pretty disruptive. It has disrupted a lot of the traditional thinking mode. I'm actually thinking how we're able to cultivate such a mode. Will it disrupted our education system? How we're able to cultivate our next generation's innovation capacity? Will it actually bring some learning method? And we need to have some challenges. And Professor Xing and Professor Gong, in order for us to cultivate innovation capacities in terms of education, do you have any thoughts? So personally, I think indeed, for the innovation talent, if we put in a new thinking mode, then today the things that we are familiar with, the education mode that we are familiar with, there have been some disallocation, because we could see some the structural knowledge. It could also serve as the foundation of that, and within the system we could see in all those fields, we could see how we're able to segment that into different knowledge, and we could also see how we're able to have the repetitive work we need to practice all the time. and for us to master all the knowledge that we need, and also for the open AI that we have just said. And when we have all those structural knowledge, how we're able to clearly define all this work, and this is disruptive tool as well. And I think so for all those structural investment, and you can see the payback would also be lower, and you are able just to access more of those structural um, development for 1 cent USD. That's very cheap, and you could save a lot of the labor costs, time and energy, and for us just to be able to gain. And we could also see that might be very asymmetrical. And so for us, we need to change the paradigm to access the knowledge. In terms of that, be it for the structural development or the changes or the knowledge, and we could also have some non-structural knowledge development. We could rely on more innovation, more inspiration, and we could rely on more of those other developments. And I think in today's world, all those pioneering entrepreneurs, innovators, I think we need to cultivate these three key capabilities, which are not relevant to the structural knowledge access, three dimensions. One is sensitivity, and inspiration, and aestheticity. So it might sound very ambiguous, very abstract. So it's very hard to be structural. And for this next era, in terms of innovator, I think it's also something how we're able just to realize or that. And I think this is quite unique, quite special idea. And we could also see so how you're able to have both of this inspiration and as sensitivity. And I think in the current education system is that we have some differences to be able to catch up. I think this is something that is worth sharing and discussing. So for the some industries, for the higher institutions, for the innovative talents cultivation, so how we are able to match all that, how we're able to connect all the links, this is one direction that we need to consider. We will also deepen our discussion in this aspect as well. All right, so Professor Xing, anything else you'd like to share? I'd like to add 2 points. One is for knowledge generation. Professor Gong has mentioned integration is very important. In terms of knowledge creation and generation, should we still specialize them into different disciplines? We need to have more interdisciplinary application, integration, horizontally and vertically. I think we need to merge more deeply. Another is from the perspective of this interaction. So like we have mentioned for robots, right? So for the robots, it now has another new name that is called cobots. So the cobots means that it has become our collaborators, because we talk about the colleagues, co-workers. So that's why we start to redefine robots as cobots, meaning that it start to become one of our partners. We want to program the robots. At the same time, we are learning from other robots. That's how we think we have this interactive learning iteration in terms of the cobots. So in the future, since there's a lot of the space for us to think about, many things are beyond our imagination. We're not sure how the future will lead us, and there are a lot of changes that are going on.
Especially for us in the work market. And next, I'd like to invite our speaker on the screen on the video conference to share with us. I find that you are actually very handsome. Professor Gong and our classmate, WeChat group, he is quite famous. And Mr. Huang Jia, well, could you start from the industry experience, share with us a little bit about innovative talents cultivation? And frequently we say we need to break the boundaries, enterprise, as well as for talents development. So what kind of new ecological system should we build to to make sure that they have more spaces for development. Can you share with us about your experience? All right, Professor Lee, actually, I'm also a student of you, and whether I can satisfy the need, the basic need of being aesthetic because talents are actually one of the assets for us. We are actually a consultation company. My practical experience for me is that I learned two very important lessons from the two professors in this digital area. Change might be happening, but what impressed me the most is that quite a poetic and romantic future. And I think we also need to stay solid with our feet on the ground. That's something worry me the most. Say if the talents we choose are still following the traditional method to solve our current existing challenges, so will that be a scenario in the future, like Professor Gong just mentioned, there will be a gap in terms of the talents due to the AI and technology disruption. The existing talents are not relevant for our future strategies. What we need will be a talent of with three senses. For enterprises operation, are we prepared for such a big challenge in the future? That might be a large gap, a sudden gap in between, or it might be a gradual process without even being noticed. So today I actually brought this question to you. We need to work out several questions or might be some budget plan for the next year. We are also aware about the possible talent structure changes as well as the overall talent capability needs changes. Just now, after hearing Professor Wang shared with us, he actually mapped out a very good blueprint for talent building, and Professor Huang as well. Actually, when we go back to the question, as enterprises operators, I might bring some negative. This year, we just finished our 26 different interviews. We interviewed over 4,000 CEOs globally. We got two surprising signals interact connected with talents development. In the past decade, we haven't witnessed that. The first signal is that over 75% of the interviewed CEOs believe that in the next 12 months, the global economic development will be negative. In the past decade, the ratio was less than 50%. Last year, the ratio increased by a dozen because people see that it will. Last year, witnessed a stable growth. But for the 2023 prediction, they see bullish, and they believe that a growing number of entrepreneurs believe they have an active outlook for the future. Another important issue closely connected with talents is that 4 out of 10 say in the next decade following the current pace, whether talents development or business mode or enterprise operation, if we follow the traditional thinking and path, over a decade later, the existing enterprise will be phased out. That's 4 out of 10 CEOs with that thought, which is quite terrific. Well, I also ask a question. How do you see talents? Entrepreneurs gave us a feedback which is quite contradictory. They knew that in the next 12 months there might be big uncertainties, or what we say, VUCA. A half of those CEOs start to slap cost or budget for that. But they knew that talents are the largest cost. Only over 10% of CEOs are considering about redundancy. However, the largest worry for them is that talents of frequent flow or the talents loss will continue. We all knew that in Western markets there was a large amount of resignation. Currently, people and CEOs are still worrying about this trend. I hope that the survey can bring us another side of the coin. We see a lot of positive sides, but we also need to pay attention to the negative sides. Frankly speaking, among those 4,000 CEOs' feedback, they actually rang the alarming bell for us. Short-term and long-term will pose new issues for us. It is related with our existence. We actually interviewed CEOs from Brazil and other countries. They are more optimistic. And let's get back to the question. As an enterprise operator, what kind of new changes are you observing? Well, I agree with you, the two professors saying that the boundaries are now becoming more blurred, where the structure, knowledge, and experience are not that valuable as that in the past. We know that we are now in Pudong and Zhangjiang. We tried out some cooperation with local companies, and actually we did something quite rebellious. We tried to utilize the apartments to create ecological system to for those companies, because we are actually the first consulting company to observe that when there are different scenarios happening in the market, large enterprises may not truly inspire talents innovation. Utilizing shares and options might be good, but it's quite difficult to encourage, because for startups, if cannot compete with that in that perspective, the only thing we can do is to blur the boundary among different enterprises, so that external innovation or employees can also make contributions for us without being hired by us. So in the ecological system, we need to carry out the philosophy of blurring the boundary. Not many enterprises are in that direction. So that's actually my first understanding. It's quite difficult. We have worked on this path for 5 years with good effect. The second boundary blurring, as we say, Professor Wang just mentioned, metaverse technology, blockchains. We are growingly finding out that the physical space's boundary is also blurred. So do we really need to retain talents to put on locally to, and that's actually closely related with geographical economic development, investment attraction. Say if one enterprise can blur the physical presence of an employee, we don't care too much about an employee's work presence. I think that's something make us quite contradictory as a new community with 300,000 people. We are continuing thinking about this issue. I actually agree on Professor Huang. When we are trying to blur the boundaries in this digital area, the most frequent saying is from the enterprise appeal. For example, in this ecological system, due to the blurring of the boundaries, incentives and payments are changing. We often calling on that local governments could provide taxation differentiation to solve some of the pain points or headache issues. Just like Professor Huang mentioned, it's very specific viewpoint. A lot of feedback from us is that I'm quite sorry if we are taking this issue, international talent hub. If you think that the power is not in my hand, then that's actually not significant. If we agree that the boundaries can be blurred, a lot of ideas can be further explored, and we can truly transfer some of our ideas into reality. And I believe that that's true significance for our forum. That's my own observation or my feelings for that. I think that's actually my understanding. So I hope that those agencies and institutions can truly solve the practical issues. Then our forum will be quite significant. Thank you. Well, it is quite challenging about what you just mentioned, but it's actually quite acute for you to single out some issues I believe that wisdom collection or polling is worthwhile for any forum because different thinking collection is valuable because we don't know which one is the best path moving forward. That's the purpose for our forum. So, following what you just shared with us, I originally scheduled to invite Professor Chen, but I'd like to ask Secretary Chen because what you just mentioned will be quite in line with what Mr. Huang said. Well, can you share with us a case study from the company perspective, how enterprises, governments, campuses should coordinate so that we can solve the existing talents of innovation? Well, thank you, Professor Lee. It gives me great pleasure and honor to attend CEIBS forum. Just now, the professors talked from the perspective of management is a macro perspective for this issue. However, as Professor Lee said, from enterprise perspective, we usually start from a micro perspective. In Zhangjiang, traditionally speaking, it is actually a traditional IC as well as artificial intelligence industry zone. That's something of our strength with a lot of talents gathering here in this area. But we also know that IC and digital development are closely related with each other because first we know that a lot of data, senses, computation, algorithms, artificial intelligence, and etc. are relying on chips to realize that. As we all know, chip industry is suffering some bottlenecks, including technologies, talents. We are suffering big challenges, but I think that is quite in line with our theme in this VUCA area. So going back to Professor Lee's question, the local government as well as the industrial zones and campuses, universities, enterprises are different entities, but each of those entities, in terms of talents attraction, cultivation, and retention, should play their own dual role or serve as several functions. First of all, studying from talents attraction, my personal opinion goes like this: a good ecological chain is the best attraction for talent. People may mention keywords like salary, payment, and the potential for development. Those are specific elements, but for an area perspective, only by having strong ecological system for industries can we attract talents. That's the fundamental attraction. Actually, in Zhangjiang area, frankly speaking, the feelings from those talents are not that good because the cost for living are quite high. For example, to get the permanent residency permit as well as the competition for talents are suffering big challenges. But why in Zhangjiang a lot of talents come here? I believe that's because of the charm of its ecological industry chains. As a developer of industrial park zone, I believe industrial and ecological system is dominated by us. So it's our responsibility. For example, in this conference venue, we invite the different experts to join the forum, as well as put together a lot of industry forums, talent hiring events. We've done various kinds of industrial events, which is to strengthen the gathering of talents. Enterprises are entities, but also a traditional source of our innovation drivers.
And the second part is to drive the talents, which have also received lots of attention. All the professors, when they're doing the sharing, all of a sudden I have an idea. You've all mentioned that what we need more is to have some compound talents, some highly efficient talents, and also like Professor Lee has mentioned, it has posed some challenges to our education. We need to have lifelong learning, lifelong education. The education that we frequently talk about, from the traditional sense, we call it a period of time that is known as the full-time compulsory education, the time that we spend before we go into universities. But after we work, we also start to have those following education, the lifelong learning. I think what is more important is that for the education time after we work, like for the companies, higher institutions, and including for the local government in all those aspects, I think you could play an even bigger role. And so, for example, in Zhangjiang these days, we start to do more of the trials. That's for the companies, higher institutions. They will work together and they will guide the cultivation of the talent. And these are directly listed into the Ministry of Education. That is what we mean to co-cultivate all the education talents. It's unlike all the point-to-point cultivation to form it as a so-called course topic. And also we have graduate student, and we also have 1+2, 2+1, and we also have all this leading direction. I think this is one direction that we have heard. And we could also see all this work like for this stock market, stock option research, and we will also see the slides that we have there. And for the Zhangjiang there, and we would like just to make it into compound talent. And for the case here, you can see that it's very beneficial and very helpful for us. And before, when Professor Huang was delivering the speech for our CEIBS, for Zhangjiang, and for the Shanghai Stock Exchange, can we just cooperate together? Because we know like half of the stock market listed companies are concentrated in Zhangjiang. We have even more companies in Zhangjiang that are about to get listed on the stock market. Is there something that we could have further discussion? And when we have all these results, we could also facilitate like the local government, like all these organizations, they're able to release some of these relevant policies to attract and retain talent. I think this is very effective. And another point is that I think for the CEIBS, in our own mind, I think it needs to not just be a hall of MBA, at the same time for our following work, for our lifelong learning, it should always be an organization that can push forward all different education. And like for this training, we can see lots of the case presentation. But frankly speaking, for this latest biomedicine integrated circuit, and also for our future aircraft and for the satellite sectors, for the CEIBS, do we have enough of the cases to guide all the future industries, and especially for the concentrative industries? So in all those aspects, can we also do some of the pioneering education deployment targeted at all the following work, and for all those diverse time for the talent deployment? I think if we could have that, and for our talent, it would actually really facilitate all the trend. That's all I need to share. Thank you so much. So you've actually done a lot of the work for us. So for the Professor Huang, you've also mentioned this is a quite good thing. We have all the good cases for us to do our exploration, all the trials. I think this is pretty good. And also for our executive education, you've also performed lots of the suggestions for all the courses, for all the some learning materials. We could all combine all the some innovation needs. These are the things that we need to value. And also like Professor Gong, Professor Xing, anything else that you need to add for us, or anything you would like to respond to us? And for all the other things for the innovative talents, is there anything that we're able to do? So on behalf of all the professor, in terms of the recruitment, how we're able to attract more talent, so we actually need to answer the call. We have such needs here. All right. Good. And also for Professor Huang, anything that you would like to discuss with us from your own perspective? What do you think? So I highly agree. What we have discussed at Zhangjiang is the birthplace of R&D. My biggest confusion is also the same as what we see in the enterprise. Like for the state-owned companies to make some adjustment, that is even more difficult. We've always wanted to change the talent structure. Before, the talent structure is like a pyramid. But like Professor has gone just mentioned, so increasingly we can see more value add, more knowledge, including all this work at the bottom level that will be replaced by AI. I've always wanted to make into an olive type. So the waste level in the middle should be creating most of the values. It's even impossible for us to change from a pyramid into all of these days because throughout this whole process for your own business, so you still need to have a pyramid type. So I'm very curious, in the state-owned companies, it's even hard for you to eliminate those at the bottom. Then this is something that we keep discussing while we serve the state-owned companies, while we make all these changes, and we also need to do all this transition, and we also have some of these questions, and we could see all this work that we have here. So for all these state-owned companies, if we're not eliminating those at the bottom, is it something that we're not going to change even in the future? So I think for our own state-owned companies, there might be some misunderstanding because we've actually had some lessons at the CEIBS, and in terms of all this the tests, we've actually made lots of the breakthrough. Alright, so changes are underway. So actually, a lot of people are considering all the things from different perspectives. They're making their own efforts at different posts. Then I think in the future, in the next 5 to 10 years, there are a lot more that we're able to think. All right, thank you so much. And also like to hear from Professor Chen, Sophie, your own perspectives. So in the career culture, in the workplace culture for the digitizations, transformation, and for all those changes, then you think in terms of those workplace culture, so you think are there gonna be any changes in terms of the workplace culture, in terms of attracting and retaining talent? What kind of workplace culture is needed for the future? All right. So just now, I have listened really carefully what others have offered all the insight, and I've also pondered on all the guests have shared with us a lot of opinions. So in the morning, we've also have such a venue to exchange our ideas. And then let's get back to what Professor Lee has just asked me. I think for all these ideas for such a route, I think we are now at such a crossroad. I've heard in the morning that be it for the opening ceremony or for the award ceremony, all this diverse information that we've got, and also like for Ding Wang and for such a new era, it also required us, so all the work that we have, and we could have all these services, and how we're able just to have more of those more of those business. So for all those organizations, there are a lot of the changes, many features, and Professor Gong has shared with us while we're undergoing all these changes in such a time, the innovative talents, they need to have more thinking, more idea. Just like Professor Huang has shared with us from the practical level, it has brought about us many breakthroughs. And I think for us, there are many challenges, many thinkings, so there are many policies that we advocate, and we also know that in terms of this practical level, if we really need to implement all the policies to answer the call of the times, so what are the experimental fields that we can get started that we could proceed with, and for all those different directions. And I think it has formed such a route, so that is for all the different elements, the factors, these are all shown in our own companies, our entrepreneurs, our leaders, how we are able to answer the call of the requirements of the era. So what exactly is such an era? So we could see for Professor Wang, Ding Wang has said we need to practice scientific management. The features, the characteristic this time is that we could actually see through the productivity element. It's actually very important progress for the companies for our industrial control times to this highly interconnected world. And I think for all the trend, for all the production elements, all the changes, it has undergone many changes. One is for our scientific management, scientific possibility, like we have this capacities, financial resources, these are all very important. Then in such an industrialization process, throughout this other process, we've increasingly heard that this is no longer about this capital, it's more about knowledge. So we are now entering into the times with more knowledge. We're living in an interconnected world. So I see that I frequently hear about people are saying that we are living in a people-oriented world. People-oriented these days has become ever more important. And we've actually discussed a lot how the current era impact us, impact our companies, and eventually it needs to impact our personnel, our talents, for our own era, our organizational requires how we're able to translate into our idea, our actions, our own views. Then from all the capitals and to us to today. So all the key points that we have discussed, it has pointed out to today's digital VUCA times. It has shown others, it has really appealed to the theme of this organization. And for us to practice something like this, and we've actually seen all the different innovative ideas and our actual challenges. I think it has really answered to the call. Like during the management process, a lot of the researchers, the practices, there have some major research breakthroughs. And also last year in March 2023, the Gartner, a very famous research company, has given out a very important prediction. By the time of 2025, around 95% of entrepreneurs believe that in the companies you need to build a resilient culture. Then Gartner also predicts is like over 30% of the entrepreneurs answered in a survey that over 90% of the time will be used to think about how to build a resilient organization. And even over 70% of the entrepreneurs answer in a survey that it's very important for you to have this important guarantee, and you can make it into a resilient organization. And in such a digital era, digital world, it has shown the resilience of our enterprises and how it could reflect on our staff behavior, how our own management method. It has shown the resilience of the times. And when we talk about this organizational resilience, we've also known a lot about all the key features here. So when we talk about the perspective, the talent these days, we also really care about the organizational resilience and the culture of this organization, how we're able to facilitate a culture of resilience, and how it will impact the culture of our workplace, and how it will really impact our own behaviors, our own work efficiency, and the final achievements. And for the resilient culture, what are the key features here? So the colleagues have already mentioned a lot, and the entrepreneurs have made a pretty good point already. So for the so-called resilient culture, that is mainly just to answer the call of the era, and we need to display high flexibility. We need to be more exploratory, and we need to be more cross industries, cross fields. Like Professor Gong just mentioned, that the talents need to have inspiration, sensitivity, and aestheticity, and also Professor Xing mentioned that in such a VUCA times, and there such as co-creation times, we will also have this changing relationship between the companies and individuals. For such a culture, in terms of the resilience, in terms of this mechanism building, our strategy setting. So for all those changing times, and even in today's different operation and management, all the different mechanisms, flexibility have also been shown. And the more important is that we need to test our organizations, how they are able to perform in terms of the management and the talent training, how we're able to show resilience requirements.
And the resilience, specifically speaking in workplace culture, how we can attract such a group of people. And this group of people are striking a new balance between life and work. They are not attaching importance to the balance between it. They're trying to identify the work balance in life or life balance in work. So that means that they have their own self drivers. They love their job. They may find something quite interesting, or gamification, self exploration are the same or even closely related in their work. So, in the resilience or workplace culture, that's actually the best demonstration. Entertainment in work, life in work, just like in many internet giants. Many employees are willing to spend their time in their workplace instead of the cut trouble by the so-called 996. So life and work both are filled with a lot of fun. It's not just from life, not just from work. So in this new area, resilience demonstration in our workplace. The second demonstration is that in terms of organization management, we can fully give response to put people first, this philosophy, as well as the internal demand. When we talk about internal demand, I believe that a lot of colleagues may have a similar thinking as well as a theory understanding, but all that boils down to one thing. In terms of emotional pursuit, growth pursuit, as well as development pursuit, as well as other pursuits, how they can better be satisfied in the workplace so that employees can enjoy such a satisfaction. I believe that the sharing from the two entrepreneurs actually gave us a lot of insights, because workplace culture is a reflection in employees' work as well as communication. Such a reflection in reality, how we can truly put people first to make fun in workplace. Then the physical place should be full of fun, innovation, and attraction, so that employees are willing to work in this physical environment, both satisfying mentally and physically, so that we can say we're truly caring about physical and emotional health of employees in workplace. So from such a perspective, physical environment, or what we say the investment, can be returned among the feelings by the employees and satisfaction. But of course, internal development for employees, like the lessons, innovative growing pattern cultivation, is a good response to that employees could continuously grow up together with the enterprises. Of course, in terms of the emotional pursuits, it's quite beneficial for the mental and physical health. We can provide them a lot of benefits and care for them, so that that actually satisfy the demand in enterprises workplace. To simply put it, workplace culture can undertake the demand of resilience and make them reflected in the behavior in workplace. Mental and physical health are very important, and that relies on our implementation in workplace, especially for innovative talent. So during the process of expansion, we can make breakthroughs for the restrictions brought by flexibility. For example, time, flexibility, location, or place. As Professor Huang mentioned, the belonging of talents, should the employees be present in workplace, or we have an open-minded sharing mechanism for talents. So that's actually my understanding. Well, just following Professor Chen, the workplace culture building, I'd like to ask Secretary Liu. Well, in the IC industry, it has a lot of challenges and also attracted a lot of attention on that. In IC industry, it also suffered bottlenecks, so I'm not sure what kind of observations you have for the industry or how you can build up the attractiveness for talents. Can you share that with us? That's actually also very important. Well, first of all, it's quite difficult nowadays to start up a company. The competition is so fierce. We need to be mentally and physically healthy. And then you even talk about to eliminate the last performers in companies. So it is exactly because of these challenges. And most critically, what we are facing is new generation in the workplace. For example, the Z generation, they have a new requirement for even startup entrepreneurs, and then we need to follow up the understanding and thinking of those Z generation. Actually, from my own perspective, I believe that there is a not one size for all solution. There is no such a model. I believe that the most effective solution is that adapt to its own style and strategic demand. That should be the most effective because at different stages of development for any enterprise, it may adopt different ways, models, different strategies to respond to those challenges. For example, the enterprise may need tough measures, and sometimes the enterprise needs to provide more care and then incentives. So, going back to the topic about IC industry talent development, we know that overall speaking, in terms of talents volume, we are in insufficiency, whether you look at it from the graduates each year or the professional, highly skilled labor, we are insufficient in talent of this kind. So the strategies for us, we actually want the support from the government, a strong support, exactly, because the government support is quite gradual, even without being noticed. In Pudong, they have a slogan that for any single small trivial matter, you can feel free to bother us. When enterprises come across difficulties, you want to seek for support. And for the national development zones, we are ready anywhere, anytime, stand by to provide what we can offer. For example, currently, for talent, we need to retain the fresh graduates. And in Zhangjiang area, we have a common feelings. It's quite easy to get household permanent residence permits. Previously, the stereotype was not that good, especially among the young people. They believe that the permanent residence permit was very difficult, like the 7 or 8 years ago when I paid a visit to the NVIDIA headquarters for one of our clients. And the VP of the headquarters had a conversation with us, and he said, I actually had a problem about hukou. I don't know how to get the hukou or the permanent residence permit. And actually, he is actually a foreigner. He doesn't have the he needs to solve the trouble for his employees. But nowadays, big changes have already happened. What we call the 0, 1, and 3, 5 policy for fresh graduates with masters, only 1 year they can get the permits, and for those workers they can have work 1 year and then get the permits, especially for overseas graduates. We are quite friendly to overseas graduates, a little bit similar to CEIBS. It's not only just about going abroad or coming back to China and medical service for them, which can be directly covered. So, and the policies are quite practical, and the practice and policies for talents should be the best beneficial for talents. That's the most practical one, especially in the IC industry and the key clients, and as well as the local government bodies. They even introduced taxation as well as fees, incentives. I cannot elaborate on that, but that's actually quite preferential treatment for each individual talent. We hope that by these policies we can convey out a signal that for any talent you can feel assured when you are working in Pudong. It's livable, it's habitable, and for your children, health and education, you don't need to worry too much about that. But for the micro environment, as I mentioned, for each different enterprise, you can have your own specific measures, but education and training are the most important measure for us to adopt. So thank you very much. Well, due to time limit at last, I'd like to ask each of the panelists to give us a summary within 1 minute, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs and representatives from different agencies presenting here today. If you were asked to give an advice, just like Mr. Huang Jia mentioned, quite depressing from those CEOs' observations about the future outlook. So we should be prepared, psychologically speaking. If there's one advice you can give to our attendees, what it is, so that we can better respond to the challenges in the future. Let's start from Professor Gong. All right. Okay. Thank you, Professor Li. Well, the only recommendation or advice from me is that there's no doubt we are now seeing disruptions. VUCA is quite frequent word we often came across. But for the complicated external environment, how we can better respond. Recently, I read a book. It was written by Stanford professor. It was called Simple Rules. And he himself studied on complicated series. He mentioned that when we are studying complicated variables, there is a possibility that we can seek for simple rules for the answer. That might be the appropriate answer. That's something beyond your imagination. To use complicated methods to solve complicated issues are very difficult, but utilizing simple rules to respond to that might be good, especially for entrepreneurs. You can just follow your inner heart, the bottom of your heart, as the cornerstone to solve those issues and complexity. That might be the best solution to move forward. Thank you. Well, what if they say that a simple solution is just to lie flat? What do you say about that? Well, that might be an option. That might be an option to lie flat, temporarily speaking. So, Professor Xin, how about you? Well, today we talked a lot about VUCA and digital area, which requires flexibility and response. And the base is resilience for organization. Resilience for an organization comes from its culture that's closely related with the leadership and executives. So as an executive or leader for an organization, to build resilience, I think you should start from care and challenge how you can provide care, provide security to your employees. Here, I'd like to start from two perspectives. First, respect and accept their difference to give them more tolerance for errors. On top of that, they can play their own innovation capability to build resilience, which should be developed. That's starting from the leadership perspective. Well, thank you. Next speaker, Professor Liu. Well, what I want to say is that never give up, never lose your confidence. as in the IC industry, talking about chips, when we already knew that the so-called trade war, after that, the chip industry technologies talents, we are continuously being challenged, like Huawei, ZTE, as well as the 301 article by the US. We have been challenged one after another. When we are faced those challenges, our industry insiders, we had anxiety. But when we look back about those challenges, currently the whole industry, including the talents gathering as well as the industry productivity or output or the international IC ratio of our output, we are continuously becoming better in those challenges.
So every time when you encounter challenges, you cannot really predict how the future will go. And we have all the experience, all the statistics that we have. We could let you know that the confidence is very important. We need to keep the confidence, and amid the challenges, we need to forge ahead all the time. So that's why I hope for us, for Pudong and for Zhangjiang, and for all the industry that you work in, you need to keep your confidence. So that's how you're able to counter against all the challenges. So what I need to share is that for such an Pudong International Talent Hub Forum, it has been the second year for us just to participate in this whole process. So what we see is that our leadership really pay attention to this, and it has set up some of the new talent mechanism, and it has really shown that we are living in a people-oriented industry, because for all those talent hubs, we often consider the efficiency to talk about organizational culture, to talk about our performance management. But all the things that we see, including the dedication by our employees, we see that organization as a living system. It's very organization oriented. So we could also see for all this forum, what we pay more attention to is all these issues that we discuss and has really focus on this people-oriented time. All those issues that we talk about here will be the workplace culture, not the organizational culture. What we're discussing here is that in our work, how we're able to get better work culture and how we can facilitate the organizational efficiency and the performance. And also in such a revolutionary world with more uncertainties, this is very important. This is a route that we must take, and it has really shown here. And also, against this prerequisite, I think we need to be more practical. And we have discussed a lot of situations and in those practices. And it has a lot of this obstacle and the challenges. And like for the ByteDance, and for all these people-oriented advocated ideas, so when we take it as a product, for this people-oriented mindset in the product is that we need to be client-oriented, and for us, we need to take our employees, the companies, the organizations. We are an important experience in it, and we know how we're able to optimize our client experience, and we also need to know how we're able to improve our employees' experience and all the different resources, different measures for the client experience. We really focus on the evaluation, focus on the observation. And for all this employee experience, we'll need to have all these tools. And for this efficiency, for all these programs that we need to see, this is more about this organization oriented. And I think for in terms of this staff experience, for all this organization and all this education, we need to take it as a product so that we're able to have better experience. So from this practical level, for us just to to have such a measure, the idea we need to have more evaluation. We need to know that is it the thing that we do, something that we needed first to do this, is it good enough? Alright, thank you so much. And then Professor Huang Jia. Alright, I'd like to conclude with two sentences. The first one is that for people-oriented companies, and we need to have the continuous transformation. The people is not just about our employees. All the stakeholders should also be included because in the technological changes, people-oriented is very important for us just to be someone with sensitivity, inspiration, and elasticity. Another is that I am a pessimistic optimist, so I have mixed feelings about the future and all the things that we have. We need to redefine our confidence, and also after that, we need to learn to forget. Based on our past experience, this might not be that relevant. That's what I have learned today. Okay, thank you so much. This is very good. Then for this forum is about VUCA, about operation. In terms of the psychology, there were three things about resilience. One is you are able to bounce back ability, like you are able to bounce back very quickly. Then for such a bounce back capacity, you need to have such a capability. Another is that you are able to rise against the challenges. That is more about the long-term perspective. You persevere in all things and you're able to rise up to challenges and the difficulties, and then for all the goals in the long run you need to really stick to that. Then for this resilience, that is very important. And post-traumatic growth, that is to say when you fall, when you get hurt, you could have this growth opportunities if we think positively. Then amid such an experience, how we can get such a growth mindset to be able to learn, then all the things that we experience, all the obstacles, challenges, hardships, failures, and I think all that really help us just to grow stronger. There's a thing that says what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. That's why I'd like to answer what Professor Huang has proposed. So even though we have challenges ahead, we have a lot of questions lying ahead. The most important thing is that we need to keep an optimistic mindset and to work together. Then I think we are able to work even harder, and we're definitely having a very prospering future. So thank you so much, everyone, and thank you all the guests here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much, all the panelists. You've shared a lot of ideas, thoughts, opinions with us. After hearing what you have presented, it's very inspirational for me. I feel that the world is changing all the time. The mankind is progressing forward. We might encounter difficulties, obstacles, but you might think about the Pudong in 30 years ago. You can think about Zhangjiang 20 years ago. How did they look like? And to compare what we present today, to see how Pudong and Zhangjiang we have today. So we will be very confident and we will even work harder for the future development. So whatever difficulties we may encounter for Pudong and Zhangjiang, this all rely on Pudong to do all the work. You may have your thoughts clearly. Then for those people who are left behind, you can continue to do that, and you will also see in the future we might have even more splendid future for Pudong and Zhangjiang. I'd like to once again thank all the guests, and I'd like to thank all the deans, presidents for today's forum from different perspectives, dimensions, and the pain point of all this organization development trend. And also like to thank Professor Wang Yitong has also mentioned about very unique perspective, this is very helpful for our organization development. Then distinguished leaders, I'd also like to thank everyone's participation. 2020 Pudong International Talent Forum, VUCA era's building organizational resilience now concludes. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much, everyone.